One Zambia, one nation. To present the main news at 18, my name is Obsta Mbebe. First, we take a look at stories making headlines. Various stakeholders have welcomed President Edgar Lungu's stance against cabinet ministers and public officials who are allegedly involved in corruption. The death toll in Saturday's Oriental cement plant accident has risen to 2. And in foreign news, a court in South Africa is hearing a bid by President Jacob Zuma to block the release of a report by former anti-corruption advisor Thuli Madonsela. Thanks for joining us, and now the news in detail. Various stakeholders have welcomed President Edgar Lungu's warning of dismissing all ministers and public officials who are involved in corruption. Transparency International Zambia TIZ Information Officer Charles Julu says the organization now hopes Zambians will take President Lungu's stance seriously and see corruption as a grave danger to the development of the country. Meanwhile, Young African Leadership Initiative YALI Executive Director Andrew Ntewewe says law enforcement agencies should take President Lungu's concerns very seriously. The two were speaking in separate interviews with TV2 News in Lusaka today. We have more details in this report.
President Edgar Lungu's call on the Anti-Corruption Commission (SEC) to up its fight against corruption has cheered many stakeholders. Stakeholders feel the SEC has not done enough. This is in following up cases of corruption which have already been brought to the fore. Transparency International Zambia feels the SEC is not on top of things.
In February 2015 and March, the Minister of Agriculture paid a total amount of 132,767,000 as subsistence allowances to various officers for attending 2 workshops to review job descriptions and training needs assessment purportedly held at Ndozo Lodge in Chilanga. And a verification carried out in June 2016 at Ndozo Lodge revealed that no such workshops were held at the lodge. Surely, this conduct of obtaining public resources, which he is not entitled to, cannot take the SEC 4 years.
The Young African Leadership Initiative is of the same view. YALI says the SEC should be seen to be working.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has to up its game. There is no way we can have a white elephant which is not doing anything. For instance, I know that every year they are supposed to be giving adequate reports in terms of successive prosecutions. Now, as the President rightly noted yesterday, there hasn't been any success story that is coming from the Anti-Corruption Commission. What has happened? Do they expect that the President should be giving directives to them? No.
Meanwhile, TIZ feels President Lungu should be commended for his stance in the fight against corruption.
And TIZ fully supports the President Lungu's stance to dismiss all ministers and public officers involved in corruption, so that we take his stance seriously and see that corruption is a danger to the development of Zambia.
And YALI feels the fight against corruption should not be left to President Lungu alone.
And so for him to talk about it again, it breathes a sigh of relief and hope in Zambians that at this particular time when we are all talking about a smart Zambia, that for us to turn this country into a developed nation, we need hard work. But most importantly, it will require sacrifice from each and every one of us.
The onus is now on the SEC to prove they are on top of things to ensure the country is free from corruption. Katushi Bwalia, TV2 News in Lusaka.
Meanwhile, the Zambia Society for Public Administration has welcomed President Lungu's concern over alleged corruption among some ministers. Society President Kelvin Esiasa has since explained that it is only right that President Lungu takes action to clean cabinet and all government departments of corrupt elements. Mr. Esiasa has said this in a statement available to TV2 News today in Lusaka. And authentic advocates for justice and democracy President Enea Mwale has also welcomed President Lungu's resolve to vigorously fight corruption. Mr. Mwale has since called on civil servants to take a leading role by whistleblowing any wrongdoing. Mr. Mwale was speaking to ZNBC News in an interview. Now, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has concluded its mission to Zambia of assessing the current economic situation and providing policy advice to restore macroeconomic stability, among other things. IMF mission team leader Tsidi Tsikata says the team will return to Zambia in the first quarter of next year for further talks before arriving at any economic recovery package. Mr. Tsikata said this in Lusaka today when he briefed the media at the end of the IMF mission to Zambia. And Secretary to the Treasury, Fredson Yamba, has said the IMF mission had one overriding aim to provide a peer review to the government on the budget proposals for 2017 and the medium-term expenditure.
Zambia's current economic challenges can be overcome with resolute policy action, such as the recent adjustment of fuel prices to cost-reflective levels and the announced intention to reduce electricity subsidies. These measures, if coupled with structural reforms to reduce inefficiencies and increase capacity utilization, especially in the energy sector, will go a long way toward increasing Zambia's potential growth. We welcome the authorities' plan to scale up social cash transfers and protect social spending, including on health and education, to mitigate the potential impact on the poor.
A large part of the time was spent discussing some of the measures that government intends to undertake in dealing with topical issues such as 1. Reducing the government deficit to create room for private sector borrowing. 2. Related to the reduced deficit, a plan for monetary adjustment in the medium term. 3. Phased clearance of arrears largely related to infrastructure development and energy. 4. Measures to increase social sector spending to address poverty issues. And 5. Measures to enhance growth prospects.
The death toll in Saturday's Oriental cement plant accident has risen to 2. This follows the death of one of the accident victims who was admitted to the University Teaching Hospital, UTH. UTH Public Relations Manager Mwenya Mlenga has confirmed the death of the victim who had suffered serious burns in the accident. More in this report.
Another sad development. This is in last Saturday's accident at Oriental Cement Plant in Lusaka. 4 workers were burnt, leaving 1 dead. Now 1 more of the victims has died. University Teaching Hospital UTH Public Relations Manager Mwenya Mlenga has confirmed the death of the second victim.
From this fall, we lost one on Sunday and the other one yesterday because the burns were quite extensive on the site. Then the other one is evacuated to X-ray, and the fourth one that is going to be with us.
From the survivors, 2 were admitted to the UTH, while 1 was evacuated to South Africa. And now with this latest death, only 1 worker, Kennedy Ngosa, is still admitted to UTH. Ngosa says he is in excruciating pain. With his family by his side, Ngosa is still undergoing treatment, and a quick recovery is what he hopes for. Kabembe Kasabola, TV2 News in Lusaka.
Labour Minister Joyce Mkoko says government is determined to create a conducive environment for both workers and employers. Ms. Mkoko says this is in order to achieve economic development. The minister also says government appreciates consultations and the role of the tripartite Consultative Labour Council in maintaining industrial harmony. Ms. Mkoko said this today in Lusaka during the tripartite Consultative Labour Council meeting. Meanwhile, Zambia Congress of Trade Union ZCDU President Nkole Chimba is happy with government's decision to acknowledge the labor movement's participation in decision-making policies. And speaking at the same event, Zambia Federation of Employers President Tyson Chisambo has welcomed President Edgar Lungu's introduction of performance-based contracts for permanent secretaries. We go for our first commercial break and we'll be back just after this. Welcome back and we continue with the news. Local Government Minister Vincent Mwale says the decentralization process that government has embarked on calls for councillors to perform. And Mr. Mwale says it is difficult for councillors to be on salary because they work part-time. He, however, says an increment on their allowance is being considered. Mr. Mwale was speaking today when he officiated at an orientation workshop for Lusaka and Chibuyunji district councillors and officers. The councillors demanded that central government puts them on salary because they are also state officers. Details in this report.
When they introduced the grade 12 certificate as a requirement, it came with immediate effect. So when we saw in the constitution about the salaries for the councillors, we also knew that this has come with immediate effect.
I think politics automatically became a career. So that is the reason why we should at least get paid.
Wow. Constitutional requirement that a councillor has now become a state officer.
The functions that will be performed by councillors have been increased.
My phone rings 24/7, and I have to dig in my own personal pocket. And without a salary, there's not much I can do.
It is a heated debate, all about money. However, embarking on this journey seems to have reached a dead end.
Why do we need to begin to pay councillors when they are still part-time? They can still continue to work if they work elsewhere, as it used to be. Councillors could work elsewhere and do this part-time job with, the councils. You're only meeting, I don't know how many times in a year, but there's some consideration, some talks already surrounding what you are getting, but not introduction of a salary.
The point is that the councillors were failing to articulate that point, and I would like to say, well, the minister has given me the opportunity to go on this. So the real issue is, in their words, they are dealing with issues on a day-to-day basis, which is full-time.
Local Government Minister Vincent Mwale has officiated at the Councillors and Officers Orientation Workshop in Chongwe District. These are officers and councillors from Chibuyunji and Lusaka City Council. Mr. Mwale has also stressed that the decentralization process embarked on by government demands responsibility from the councillors.
Places a huge responsibility on yourselves. If you came to the council thinking you are coming to give out land and that was your business, you have to think again. Maybe you have to resign, excuse yourself, and leave only those that are serious with ensuring that the government provides services to the people.
After listening to the minister, some councillors expressed sadness that they will not be on salary.
This is very important for everybody.
No, that's what failed.
This is the reason why we will know exactly where we stand. Shall we? There's a way that we are going to protest. Shall we go?
Other councillors opted to leave the orientation workshop. Zambia has more than 1,600 councillors countrywide, and the orientation workshop across the country will go on for the next 3 weeks. Mwilang Sofum, TV2 News in Chongwe District.
Various stakeholders have received with mixed feelings the night movement restriction of public service vehicles, PSV. This follows Transport and Communications Minister Brian Mushimba's signing of a statutory instrument to restrict the movement of PSV vehicles to between 05 hours and 21 hours. This is effective November 27, 2016. In Kitwe, some bus drivers and passengers spoken to have said the ban is not the solution to the high number of fatalities on Zambian roads. And Public and Private Drivers Association of Zambia President Josiah Majuru says the move will reduce the number of accidents. And in a random survey by TV2 News, many people in Lusaka have welcomed the move, describing it as timely, but others say the restriction may not be the answer to road carnage, as the biggest problem on the roads is failure by drivers to follow traffic rules.
50-50. But I think the best thing is at least the government should look into that issue, so that at least people should undergo scrutiny in terms of this driving, whatever. They should at least be trained to the fullest, so that at least even when someone is on the road, it's worth it.
Whether it's at night or during daytime, if you are careless, you are careless. And you can cause an accident anytime, in the morning, afternoon, evening. So it's not about driving at night. Suppose there's a serious problem at home, maybe one of the family members say, can't you be forced to travel at night? So what is important is the government to encourage drivers to be careful as they are driving, to observe traffic rules. I think that's the best. Yeah, that's
my comment is just that, yeah, it's very much important that to stop the vehicle to move at the night. Yeah, that's the only thing that I can say. Because they are causing more accidents. So most of people, they die.
Engineers from various parts of the country today gathered in Lusaka at a funeral of Alec Malichi, who was a lecturer in the School of Engineering at the University of Zambia, Unza. And speaking at the church service, Unza Vice Chancellor Luke Mumba said the institution has lost a lecturer at a time when the staffing levels are low. Meanwhile, ZNBC Director General Richard Mwanza described late Mr. Malichi, who also served as board chairman at ZICTA, as humble and intelligent. Hector Simfukwe has details in this report.
He has been described as an unsung hero in the field of engineering and lecturing. Alec Malichi, a lecturer at Unza and engineer, was born on the 27th of June 1949 and died on the 28th of October 2016. Alec Malichi died of injuries sustained following the road traffic accident that happened within Unza premises. And today, members of the public joined engineers across the country in bidding farewell to Mr. Malichi at Unza Chapel and Edward Ziu Memorial Park. Mr. Malichi is credited for many things, including the growth in the mobile telecommunication sector when he served as board chairman at ZICTA. He joined the University of Zambia as a lecturer in 1977 before working for companies like ZCCM, but later returned to Unza. Those who worked with him had this to say.
One evening, I said, Mr. Malichi, the cost of access to communication is very high. We're getting 250 kwacha for a SIM card. That's too high. So he said, explain to me. I said, it's possible we can bring this down. So I explained to him. And we implemented what we discussed that evening. It was around 22 hours. And to date, the cost of the SIM card has remained at 5 kwacha. The other one was on the international gateway. I explained to him that it was possible that we would have many international gateways. We actually ended up seeing then the late President Manawasa, and we agreed to open up. Today, the cost of international calls are very low because of his contribution. So the growth of the sector, because of what we did together with then Mr. Malichi was the board chairman of Communications Authority, which is now ZICTA. The sector started growing.
And speaking at the church service, Unza Vice Chancellor Professor Luku Mumba said it is sad for the institution to lose a lecturer when it is struggling with staff levels.
I know most of the issues have been covered by the Dean in terms of his contribution to the university, teaching at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. His links with industry. He was really a pillar in terms of linking the university to industry. And we are going to miss that very strategic link through this particular loss.
For family members, the late Malichi was a parent as well as source of inspiration.
You were a pillar of the family, a mentor to our children, and a counselor to many people. You opened our home to all family members. Your calmness, humbleness, and understanding will always remain cherished for the rest of our lives.
Mr. Malichi is survived by a wife, 5 children and grandchildren. The contributions of Mr. Malichi in the field of engineering will not only be missed by those at UNZA, but the nation as a whole. Hector Simfukwe, TV2 News in Lusaka.
Foreign Affairs Minister Hari Kalaba has commended Nigeria's efforts in the liberation struggle for Africa. TV2's Joyce Yatube reports that Mr. Kalaba says Nigeria and Zambia have a lot in common as they both contributed greatly to the liberation of Africa. He has also praised Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari for his great leadership and efforts in addressing the security challenges that the West African nation faces. And Mr. Kalaba says Zambia will continue working closely with Nigeria on the African Union AU Security Council as the two countries share the same aspirations on organs reforms. He has also encouraged Nigerians to take advantage of Zambia's favorable investment climate by investing in the economy, which he said is diversifying from copper to agriculture. The minister said this when he called on Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Onyema at his office in Abuja today. And Mr. Onyema thanked the Zambian government for its continued support to his country in the face of security challenges. Mr. Kalaba is in Nigeria to deliver a special message from President Edgar Lungu to President Buhari. We take another commercial break, and still coming up in the news is international and sports stories. Don't go away. Welcome back, and now for foreign news. A court in South Africa is hearing a bid by President Jacob Zuma to block the release of a report by former anti-corruption advisor Thuli Madonsela. She probed allegations that he let the wealthy Gupta family wield undue political influence in his government. They have denied any wrongdoing. Mr. Zuma said the report was unlawful as he had not been given a proper chance to respond to the allegations. Meanwhile, the Nelson Mandela Foundation has called for his sacking. In a hard-hitting statement, the foundation said Mr. Zuma had failed the test of leadership and South Africa's democracy was under a real threat. And for sports news, the national wheelchair basketball team has called on the National Paralympics Committee to be proactive. Team coach Crispin Mwale says lack of proper wheelchairs for the sport of basketball for the disabled has hampered its development in the country. Mwale says the team has a number of challenges that need to be addressed and there is little support from the Paralympics Committee. He was speaking during the team's training session at the Olympic Youth Development Center, OYDC, in Lusaka.
This is Harriet Chali. She is part of the Zambia national wheelchair basketball team. Her passion to play basketball seems to outweigh the many challenges that surround this sport.
It's difficult. We've got challenges like the wheelchairs and others say transport, and we train without any refreshment. The wheelchairs, we don't have wheelchairs, like proper wheelchairs. You can see my wheelchair. This is the personal wheelchair I use at home. It's not for wheelchair basketball.
Just like Harriet, the wheelchair basketball team has aspirations to grow the sport in the country with a view of attracting other physically challenged members to the sport. Team coach Crispin Mwale says lack of proper wheelchairs is a major challenge and has called on the Zambia National Paralympics Committee to be actively involved to address this challenge.
I just want to urge our association so that they can become active. Yeah, because on ourselves we cannot reach that far.
The team is training at the Olympic Youth Development Center in preparation to host the Zimbabwe national wheelchair basketball team. The Zambia-Zimbabwe game will be played as part of commemorations of the World Disability Day, which falls on December 3rd, 2016. Etambuyu Katota, ZNBC Sports, Lusaka.
And with that sporting item, we conclude our main news at 18. But before we go, a reminder of the top stories. Various stakeholders have welcomed President Edgar Lungu's stance against cabinet ministers and public officials who are allegedly involved in corruption. Transparency International Zambia Information Officer Charles Chulu says TIZ hopes Zambians will take President Lungu's stance seriously. The death toll in Saturday's Oriental cement plant accident has risen to 2. This follows the death of one of the victims who was admitted to the University Teaching Hospital, UTH. And finally, a court in South Africa is hearing a bid by President Jacob Zuma to block the release of a report by former anti-corruption advisor Thuli Madonsela. She probed allegations that he led the wealthy Gupta family wield undue political influence in his government. And that will do for the main news at 18, but join us for another detailed news bulletin at 20 hours on TV2, the powers of television. My name is Obstambewe. On behalf of the entire production team, it's bye-bye. Have a lovely evening.